Sabina, as I mentioned, is here from the Plant-Based Food Association and is the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives and Communications for the Plant-Based Food Association, where she leads their food service, communications, and partnership initiatives. And she will be speaking to us today about policy and consumer access issues critical to this expanding industry. And Sabina, will you be sharing your slides, or would you like me to do that?
You can go ahead, that'd be great.
Okay, give me just one moment here.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I was able to catch a few sessions and they were wonderful. And I thought the audience questions were very thoughtful. So I'm looking forward to engaging with everyone today.
I think what I might do is try to share the PowerPoint first and see if Hopin lets us do that. And then if not, I will switch to the PDF version.
Okay.
So, hold on just 1 minute here. All right. Let's see if this works. Share. All right, can you all see that? Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right, it's going to be, oh, okay, there we go.
Oops.
All right, we're up and running. So thank you, Sam, for the introduction and for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to be here on behalf of the Plant-Based Food Association. We are a trade association that represents plant-based food companies. We have over 300 members, and over 175 of those are companies that make or distribute plant-based foods. And they range from being small startups to established brands to ingredient suppliers. And we also have investor members and affiliates, companies that create services for plant-based companies. And so we have a tight-knit community of those who are looking to have the plant-based food industry grow. And we exist to establish a strong foundation for the plant-based foods industry to succeed and thrive. And we do that in two main areas. One is policy and one is consumer access. I'm first gonna dive into the policy work, really, which was the impetus for what started the Plant-Based Foods Association. As which was mentioned in the intro session with Nina Gelman, she mentioned that the meat, dairy, and egg industries receive substantial subsidies from the federal government that create artificial lower pricing for their goods, and that our plant-based companies have to compete against. While that's a huge undertaking, what we have had to deal with in the more immediate sense has been bills that have popped up at the state level that are creating restrictions around labeling of plant-based foods for packaging for our members. What that looks like is, and you may have heard a little bit about this in your previous session around regulations, but these bills have been popping up saying that terms such as plant-based meat, plant-based butter, and plant-based burgers can't be used, and that this is going to cause a huge detriment to our member companies. So PBFA exists really to defend our members' free market and First Amendment rights so that they don't have to deal with issues like that. So we take these head on, often partnering with some of our members. But why this causes a issue is, I'll give you an example. Yes.
So, would you like me to switch the slide? Sorry to interrupt.
No, this will be on for a little bit. I'll let you know next slide when we move forward.
Just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So with the bill that started in the state of Virginia last year, the bill would have banned the use of the word milk unless it came from a healthy hooved animal or was considered to be human breast milk. If you walked down the grocery store aisle lately, past the milk section, you've probably seen the wide array of plant-based milk that is available. And if they aren't, let's say in Virginia, if these plant-based companies weren't able to sell their milk in Virginia because of this ban, because the cost of really changing packaging to put in a restrictive label such as almond beverage or imitation almond beverage would be really difficult for many companies. And so they would more likely not be selling their foods into that market. And that creates a huge issue, not just for the plant-based food company, but also for retailers who want to sell these innovative products to the consumers that are demanding it. And then the end consumer suffers because if they're looking for these foods, they won't have access to it. So by fighting bills such as this, we're able to level the playing field for our companies. And this bill was vetoed. The governor of Virginia vetoed this bill based on that it was that he felt that it would be against the Constitution, that it violated First Amendment rights, and that it would really block innovation being introduced and expanded in the state of Virginia. So we saw this as a huge win for the plant-based foods industry. But I will say that bills similar to this, both for plant-based meat, milk, and eggs, we're assuming at some point will continue to pop up because they are fueled by the meat, dairy, and egg lobby. And so we try to offset these by defending our members with the legislation and hoping that these don't turn into laws, but a few of them have. What we are also doing is PBFA has created voluntary standards of identity. And this, what we've done is identified the large categories within plant-based foods. So plant-based milk, plant-based meat, plant-based yogurt, and soon to be released plant-based cheese. These voluntary standards provide guidance to plant-based companies on how to label their packaging and how to put qualifiers in front of their foods, which many members are already doing, but these are just guidelines that we've created that also define the plant-based food, and we've shared this with the FDA. So we're trying to make this a collaborative process that they know that as a voice of the industry, we are trying to work with them. Our members and plant-based food companies aren't trying to confuse the consumer. They're trying to create foods that the consumer is looking for. So one thing we've done is, in addition to the voluntary standards, we've also created a certified plant-based certification seal. And next slide. You may have, if you're in the US and you are a consumer of plant-based foods, you may have seen this symbol on packaging that shows that this food, and what it certifies is that this food is made from plants and that it does not contain any animal ingredients. And we do this to provide confidence to the consumer that when they're purchasing something that is certified plant-based, that they know it's plant-based, and also to educate the FDA and other entities that we are trying to provide clarity on behalf of our membership as well as to the industry. But while we are doing that, consumer demand is shooting through the roof. So well, next slide, I'll show you that in the last few years, just in the last 2 years, you can see that plant-based foods went from being $3.7 billion in retail all the way to $5.2 billion just in the past 2 years. And it's been a 28% increase just in the past year. So this is huge because it shows that plant-based consumers it's no longer really a trend. Plant-based foods and the shift to eating more plant-based foods throughout your diet, whether you be vegan, vegetarian, or what we call flexitarian, that's on the rise. And folks are making this shift, and we're hoping that through our partnerships in both retail and food service, that we're able to increase access to these foods. You'll see on the right-hand side that with milk accounts for 48% of the whole plant-based category. So it's a huge category, with meat now also growing to be very large, to be 26%. Next slide. And you'll see that milk accounts for, plant-based milk accounts for 14% of the overall milk category. And that's significant because this past year, milk increased in growth 22% from the previous year, which is 4 times the growth that it saw the year before. And it was about 4 to 5% growth every year. So the fact that in the past year, 22% growth is huge. And plant-based meat grew 46%, 3 times the amount that it did the year before. This is happening because there is so much innovation happening in these categories. So we're excited, and we know that this is going to continue to happen as we continue to see the categories grow. Currently, there's 23 plant-based food categories within the retail store, and we're expecting that to continue to expand with innovation. Next slide. As I said a little bit earlier, who are these folks who are eating plant-based foods? And while the vegans and vegetarians make up about 5% of the population, the flexitarian, those who are trying to consume less meat, or they're vegetarian and occasionally consume meat, poultry, and eggs, this population accounts for about 33% of consumers of plant-based foods. Excuse me. So with these consumers, the retailers that we partner with and food service leaders are really looking at this population, because although we would love for them to tailor these foods to the vegans and vegetarians, they know that this huge population of flexitarians is really what's going to drive their menu items and the foods off the shelves. So next slide. Our consumer access work is really broken down into two different areas. One is retail, where our goal is to increase shelf space within the retail setting, within the store. We want to take up more real estate for plant-based foods, but now with the rise in COVID and with more consumers shopping online, we also want to have increased access to within the apps and to online shopping to plant-based foods. So those are our goals for retail. And we are able to achieve that by providing them with the data insights, some of which I just shared with you, but also conducting research with retailers. You may have seen a recent study that we did with the large retailer Kroger, where we wanted to see what would happen to sales of plant-based meat if we put it all in the meat section of the grocery store. And just by making this shift with a pilot study that went across 90 stores, there was a 23% increase in sales just by putting plant-based meat alternatives in the meat section. So we are learning as we're going on what's the best merchandising strategy, what are promotions. We conduct shopper marketing campaigns to try to gain more awareness of our members' foods within the retail setting. It could be even online, where shoppers are given promotions. And when they can go in stores, they can have samples of different foods. So if someone's plant curious, these discounts help them try the foods, and if not even sampling, they're able to taste what these foods can, what they taste like before making a purchase. So we try to create education for the retailer in addition to these other programs that we partner with them on, because at the end of the day, while we want them to make the decision to adopt more plant-based foods into their stores on the basis of sustainability, or that we know it's better for the health of humans and the animal welfare, they're going to do it because of the bottom line. They're going to do it because consumers are demanding it. So the reasons they're interested, and oftentimes they may have some of the similar sustainability goals, they make these decisions to offer more plant-based foods because it's better. It's a better business decision for them, and we help them get to that by guiding them on strategy. Right now, what we learned in the past, what we recently learned is that most of the large retailers have a plant-based strategy with the way that they're going to tailor their stores, because if they don't get onto this shift, they're going to be left behind. So we're excited about that. And the other aspect, like I said, about our consumer access work is our food service work, and that's an area that I lead. And what we do with our food service work is that we create partnerships with food service institutions to try to get more plant-based foods onto menus, but also on campus. So if we have, any Cal students here, which I think we have a lot of, you will be interested in knowing that we do partner with Cal Dining and are trying to get more plant-based foods onto menus when you come back to school in person, but also have more plant-based options at your Golden Bear Market. So we've been working closely with the Cal Dining procurement staff and staff on even menu messaging. We've done trainings with your chefs on menu messaging and how to make menus sound as good as the taste that they're working on internally. So that's been a lot of fun, and we're excited to see what that looks like for you when you return, hopefully in the fall. But that's just an example of some of the food service partnerships that we have. We work with hospitals, and we work with distributors. So distributors are those who provide the foods to both retail and food service. And what's happened, a big barrier for food service, is that oftentimes they may put an item on the menu, but the continuity of that availability isn't always there. It could be that it's a smaller company whose, the demand is exploding and they can't keep up with demand, and it ends up creating gaps in availability. And what happens is food service directors get frustrated with that and they want to take it off the menu. So we're working closely with distributors, making the business case like we are with retail, to have them understand why they want to include more plant-based foods into their distribution so they're available when food service directors purchase them, but also work with our member companies to assess which of them are ready to have robust distribution to meet food service demands. So we love the work that we're doing. We're creating opportunities for our members and hopefully increasing access across the board, across different communities as we continue to expand this work. So next slide. Here you'll see an example on this last slide of what we'd love to see on your campus stores, which would be a vast array of the plant-based foods that are available, and also quick grab-and-go friendly foods that you'll see in the corner that we have available: burgers, salad bowls, wraps that we have developed recipes with our chef on. And so we're hoping even Cal Dining may be able to integrate some of this, but this is what we propose beyond with distributors and plant-based institutions across the board. So that's a little bit about our work there. And I will say that even with our policy work, what we're looking forward to in 2021 and beyond is that with the new Biden administration, PBFA wants to have a voice. And we are working to bridge the gap between U.S. agriculture and plant-based food companies to create a new project that just launched this past year that focuses on ingredient sourcing. What are the main ingredients or most common ingredients used in plant-based alternatives? And how can we work with farmers to grow them domestically in a regenerative way that can help the policy work that we do, but also impact the planet on a sustainability level, and allow for possibly lower cost inputs for our members so that they can eventually, hopefully, reduce their pricing as we expand this program. So that's one area that we're looking to expand in 2021. And we also are looking to support bills in policy around hospitals and correctional facilities across different states. In 2018, we had a bill that was passed in California that requires that a patient or an inmate who asks for a plant-based option is given one, whether it be a snack or an entree. And that similar bill was passed in New York. So we're looking to have proactive bills passed as well as defend our members against labeling laws and promote plant-based foods to increase access across communities for the reasons of sustainability, health, social justice, and food justice, and for the animals. So I'm happy to answer any questions that we have time for right now, and also later on in the Q&A. Hope that was a quick recap. We just scratched the surface.
Thank you so much, Sabina. That was fantastic. And I can't wait for UC Berkeley's campus to hopefully look like that one day. That would be the dream. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you again. Or I can leave it like that. And yeah, it looks like we're almost out of time here. And we have so many great questions from the audience, but maybe just one quick question. I'm so curious, how important is it in terms of lobbying efforts that many of the big meat and dairy companies now offer plant-based products themselves?
It's a great question. So what we see that as a positive. So we are trying to create an inclusive space for meat and dairy to join the industry, because if they recognize that this is where the future is going, it may make it may make it complicated, but we are welcoming it at this point, because that means that we may be able to educate them and start a conversation. If we keep separated from them while they're trying to dip their toes in, and what we're seeing increasingly is that many big companies are expanding their portfolio to offer more plant-based foods. So we want to encourage that type of behavior, and so we are looking at it as a positive.